Captain Sarah Viper Mitchell had trained her whole life to defend American airspace. She never imagined the threat would come from outside it. The first anomaly appeared on NORAD screens at 0347 hours, a cluster of contacts moving at impossible speeds through the outer atmosphere. No radar signature, no transponder codes, no filed flight plans. Cheyenne Mountain, this is Peterson Control, crackled through her headset as she suited up in the pre-dawn darkness of Nellis Air Force Base. We have multiple bogies bearing 270 altitude climbing through Angels 60. Estimate, 30-plus contacts. Mitchell's hands moved with practiced precision, checking connections on her flight suit. The familiar weight of her helmet felt reassuring. 15 years of flying the world's most advanced fighter aircraft had prepared her for this moment, whatever this moment turned out to be. Speed? She asked, keying her Mach 7, still accelerating. Her fingers paused on the oxygen hose connection. Nothing moved at Mach 7 in atmosphere, nothing human, anyway. The alert klaxon's piercing wail cut through the hangar bay. Red lights bathed everything in an otherworldly glow as ground crews sprinted between aircraft. The sound of her F-22 Raptor's engine spooling up created a growing thunder that vibrated through her chest. Viper, this is Control. You're authorized weapons free. Rules of engagement are simple. Anything moving that fast without IFF is hostile. Mitchell's Raptor rolled out of the hangar into Nevada's star-filled sky. The pre-dawn air was crisp, clean, perfect flying weather. The kind of morning that made her remember why she'd wanted to be a pilot since she was 8 years old. Watching Blue Angels tear through the sky above her father's naval base, her radar screen populated with friendly contacts as her squadron formed up 12 F-22s and 8 F-35s ascending through the darkness like metal angels. Raptor flight, this is Viper. Sound off hammer. Good to go. Sidewinder, locked and loaded. Falcon ready to party. One by one, her pilots checked in, the best of the best. Top Gun graduates, red flag veterans, pilots who'd proven themselves in the crucible of aerial combat over 2 decades of global operations. As they climbed through 30,000 feet, the eastern horizon began to glow with the promise of sunrise. Beautiful morning to save the world, Mitchell thought. Then immediately felt foolish for the dramatic notion. Her radar threat receiver remained silent. No enemy radar painting them, no electronic warfare signatures. Whatever these contacts were, they weren't using conventional targeting systems. All stations, this is a WACS. Contacts have stopped accelerating. Now maintaining Mach 5 at Angels 80, they're just hovering at 80,000 feet while moving at Mach 5. The physics made her head hurt. Viper Control were designating these contacts as Echo 1 through Echo 3. Your mission is intercept and identify. If they show hostile intent, you are cleared to engage. Copy. Control. Raptor flight. Let's go introduce ourselves. The Raptors climbed steadily, their twin Pratt & Whitney engines pushing them toward the edge of space. At 50,000 feet, Mitchell could see the curvature of the Earth. The sky had turned that deep purple-black that existed only at the boundary between atmosphere and void. Her radar finally achieved lock. The contacts weren't aircraft, they were geometric impossibilities, perfect triangles maintaining formation like a deadly constellation. Each triangle measured roughly 60 feet per side, moving with mechanical precision that no human pilot could match. Control, Viper, I have visual on multiple triangular aircraft. Configuration unknown, no visible propulsion, maintaining perfect formation spacing. Copy. Viper, can you identify any markings? Or the radio transmission cut to static as her threat receiver exploded in warning tones. Her aircraft shuddered as invisible energy washed over it. Every electronic system flickered. Brake right, brake right, she screamed into her comm as the lead triangle rotated toward her squadron. The alien craft moved like nothing she'd ever seen. No gradual turn, no banking into the maneuver. It simply oriented itself in a new direction and accelerated instantaneously to intercept. Mitchell yanked her stick hard right, pulling 8 Gs as her Raptor snapped into a defensive spiral. Blood drained from her head, her vision tunneled. G-suit compressed her legs and torso, fighting to keep her conscious. A beam of coherent energy sliced past her canopy, close enough that she could smell ozone. The air itself seemed to burn. Vipers, taking fire. All aircraft, weapons free. Repeat, weapons free. Her squadron scattered like startled birds, each pilot executing the defensive maneuvers drilled into them through thousands of hours of training. But training assumed you were fighting something that obeyed the laws of physics. Mitchell rolled inverted and dove, using gravity to build speed. Her radar warning receiver painted the alien craft with a tone she'd never heard before, not the familiar growl of Russian or Chinese radar, but something that sounded almost musical. Fox 3, Hammer's voice cut through the radio chatter as he fired an AIM-120 AMRAAM at the nearest triangle. The missile's rocket motor ignited in a brilliant flash, accelerating to Mach 4 as it tracked toward its target. Advanced guidance. Systems locked onto the alien craft's radar signature. The triangle didn't even attempt to evade. The AMRAAM struck it dead center and passed right through. What the hell? Hammer's voice cracked with disbelief. Direct hit, no effect. things still flying like nothing happened. Mitchell watched her tactical display as the triangle continued its attack run, completely unaffected by a missile that could destroy any aircraft ever built. The laws of warfare had just changed. All aircraft, this is Viper, switch to guns. If missiles won't work, we go kinetic. She rolled her Raptor into a high G-turn, lining up the lead triangle in her heads-up display. The M61A2 Vulcan cannon's ready light glowed green. 6,000 rounds per minute of 20 mm depleted uranium shells. Guns, 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 guns. The Vulcan spun up with a sound like a buzzsaw tearing through steel. Tracers streaked across the morning sky, each round carrying enough kinetic energy to punch through tank armor. The shells struck the triangle and kept going, as if the craft existed in some parallel dimension where solid matter was merely a suggestion. But something was different this time. The triangle's perfect formation wavered. Its impossible maneuvers became slightly less impossible. Control. Viper kinetic rounds are having some effect. The contacts appear to be becoming more ... solid. Copy. Viper. Continue engagement. Mitchell banked hard left as another energy beam sliced past her aircraft. This one was close enough that she could feel heat through her canopy. The alien weapon was learning her flight patterns. Falcons hit. The radio crackled with panic. I'm losing hydraulics. Attempting emergency landing. On her display, Falcon's F-35 trailed smoke as it dove toward the desert floor. The pilot was still alive, still flying, but his aircraft was dying around him. That made it personal. Mitchell activated her afterburners and climbed toward the triangle that had shot down her wingman. The Raptor's twin engines roared, pushing her through Mach 2 as she closed distance. The alien craft rotated to face her, its energy weapon charging with a sound like distant thunder. Mathematical precision in every movement. No hesitation, no fear, just cold, mechanical efficiency. She waited until the last possible second, then pulled vertical. The Raptor stood on its tail, defying gravity through pure thrust and American engineering. The energy beam passed beneath her as she climbed, toward space itself. At the apex of her climb, hanging motionless for a split second between Earth and void, she rolled, inverted, and dove. This is for Falcon, you bastard. Her cannon fired in sustained bursts as she dove toward the triangle. Tracers drew brilliant lines across the sky. The alien craft tried to evade, but something had changed in its flight characteristics. It moved like it was fighting through thick liquid. Her rounds found their mark. The triangle shuddered, flickered, then exploded in a burst of energy that lit up the dawn sky like a second sunrise. Splash 1. Mitchell pulled out of her dive just above the minimum altitude, her aircraft groaning under the stress. Confirmed kill on EON. The remaining triangles immediately changed tactics. Instead of individual attacks, they began moving in coordinated groups, their energy weapons creating overlapping fields of fire that no human pilot could penetrate. Almost no human pilot. Raptor flight. This is Viper. Form up for coordinated attack. We're going to show these things why they picked the wrong airspace to invade. Her squadron regrouped with practiced efficiency. 12 of the world's most advanced fighter aircraft, flown by pilots who had dedicated their lives to air superiority. Hammer, take your flight high. Sidewinder, come in from the south. I'll lead the main attack up the middle on my Mach. The triangles continued their precise maneuvers, seemingly oblivious to the tactical genius being arrayed against them. They had superior technology, impossible physics, weapons that could slice through anything, but they didn't have the warrior spirit forged in the crucible of Top Gun, refined through red flag exercises, and tempered by decades of defending the greatest nation on Earth. Mach 20 F-22s and F-35s attacked from 3 directions simultaneously. Not the random dogfighting that had characterized the opening engagement, but a coordinated strike that would have made Sun Tzu weep with admiration. Aliens' perfect formation shattered as they tried to respond to multiple threats. For the first time, their mechanical precision became a liability. They couldn't adapt fast enough to the creative chaos of human tactics. Fox 3. Multiple voices called out as AMRAAM missiles streaked toward targets from every angle. This time, the missiles found their mark. Triangles exploded across the sky as American technology proved that sometimes the old ways were the best ways. Control. This is Viper. We are weapons Winchester. Estimate 27 enemy aircraft destroyed. Remaining contacts are withdrawing. Outstanding work Viper. RTB for rearm and refuel. Be advised, we're tracking additional contacts inbound from the northwest. Mitchell checked her fuel gauges. Enough for maybe 10 more minutes of combat operations. Her ammunition counter reads 0. Negative. Control, we're staying up here. Sidewinder, what's your fuel state? 8 minutes, maybe 10 if I fly like an old lady. Hammer, same. We're all running on fumes. Viper. Through her headset she could hear the approaching rumble of additional aircraft. Reinforcements from Edwards, Nellis, and every other base within 500 miles were scrambling, but they were still 20 minutes out. The new wave of triangles appeared on her radar. 50 contacts this time. moving in perfect formation toward populated areas. Las Vegas and Los Angeles and Phoenix cities full of people who had no idea that the morning sky had become a battlefield. All aircraft. This is Viper. We hold the line. Whatever these things are, wherever they came from, they don't get past us. Her squadron formed up one final time, 12 aircraft running on empty tanks in pure determination. The triangles outnumbered them 4-1, with energy weapons that could cut through steel. It didn't matter. Control, patch me through to Peterson. You're through. Viper, Peterson Control. This is Captain Sarah Mitchell, Calcine Viper. American airspace is closed. Repeat, American airspace is closed. Nothing gets through without our permission. The new wave of triangles accelerated toward them, 50 geometric impossibilities moving with mechanical precision and alien technology. Mitchell smiled inside, her oxygen mask, and pushed her throttles forward. Her Raptor's engines, already running beyond redline, found reserves they didn't know. They had American engineering responding to the determination of an American pilot. Raptor flight, this is Viper. Time to remind these visitors why we call it air superiority. The engagement lasted for minutes and 37 seconds. When the reinforcements arrived, they found Captain Sarah Viper Mitchell's squadron still flying combat air patrol over the smoldering wreckage of 73 alien aircraft, 12 F-22s and F-35s, flying on fumes and fury, maintaining their defensive positions like aerial sentinels. Her post-mission interview was classified at the highest levels, but one exchange was later declassified and became legend among military aviators worldwide. Captain Mitchell, how did you and your squadron defeat a technologically superior enemy force? Sir, with respect, they might have had better technology, but they made one fatal mistake, which was, they forgot they were fighting Americans. The alien invasion lasted 3 more days, but what the sanitized after-action reports never captured was the brutal intensity of each wave. The innovation born from desperation, and the moments when American air power proved that superior technology meant nothing without the warrior spirit to wield it effectively. 18 hours after Mitchell's squadron had broken the first alien assault, the radar screens at NORAD lit up like a Christmas tree. This time, there were no geometric formations, no mechanical precision, just a cloud of contacts swarming toward Earth's atmosphere like angry hornets. 237 contacts. The controller's voice was tight with controlled panic. Multiple entry points. They're not following the same flight patterns. Mitchell stood in the operations center at Nellis, her flight suit still damp with sweat from the previous day's engagement. Around her, pilots from every major airbase in the continental United States studied displays showing the approaching threat. They learned, she said quietly. Colonel James Harrison, base commander, nodded grimly beside her. Distributed attack patterns, no central formation to break. And look at this, he pointed to a tactical display. Speed variants, some moving at Mach 3, others at Mach 8. They're making it impossible to coordinate a single intercept strategy. The new alien craft were different too, where yesterday's triangles had been pristine geometric shapes. These vessels appeared organic, flowing, shifting, almost alive. Intelligence reports suggested they were adapting in real time to American defensive strategies. Ma'am, a young communications officer turned toward Mitchell. You're being requested at Edwards. Priority 1. 20 minutes later, Mitchell stood in a briefing room she'd never seen before, surrounded by technology that officially didn't exist. General Patricia Rebus, commander of Air Combat Command, gestured toward a holographic display showing the alien swarm. Captain, what you and your squadron did yesterday bought us time, now we use it. The hologram shifted, revealing aircraft that looked like they'd emerged from a science fiction movie. Sleek, angular shapes that seemed to bend light around their edges. F-117X Nighthawk's classified program that's been in development for 15 years. Today they get their combat debut. Mitchell studied the stealth aircraft. They looked like evolved versions of the original F-117, but with curves that suggested advanced understanding of radar absorption. What's the mission, General? The aliens are using some kind of command ship here. The display highlighted a massive vessel hanging in Earth's upper atmosphere. Take it out, and intelligence believes the swarm loses coordination. Weapons, something new. Kinetic kill vehicles with nuclear-tipped penetrators. If yesterday taught us anything, it's that sometimes you need to hit things really, really hard. 2 hours later, Mitchell found herself strapped into an aircraft that felt like flying a piece of dark energy. The F-117X moved through the sky like a shadow with purpose, completely invisible to conventional radar. Nightshade flight. This is Control. Target bearing 0 and 90. Angels 120. You are cleared for attack. Run. The alien command ship hung in the darkness above like a malevolent star. Roughly a mile long, covered in structures that defied geometric classification. Energy patterns danced across its hull like aurora. Nightshade 2. You seeing this? Her wingman's voice crackled through the confirmed. That thing's big enough to have its own zip code. Mitchell activated the targeting system. The new Kinetic penetrator was a weapon that existed in the gray area between missile and artillery shell, designed to punch through any armor ever conceived, then detonate with the force of a small sun. Fox 4. The weapon dropped away from her aircraft, its guidance system painting the command ship with invisible targeting beams. For 30 seconds, it fell toward its target like a metal comet. The explosion lit up the upper atmosphere like a second sunrise. When the light faded, the alien command ship was gone. Simply ... gone. Below them, 200 alien craft suddenly began flying into each other. Control. This is Nightshade 1. Target destroyed. Hostile formation is, well, they're not forming anymore. The swarm attack lasted 6 more hours. But without central coordination, the alien craft proved vulnerable to conventional intercept tactics. F-16s and F-15s from bases across the continent methodically destroyed the confused invaders' American losses. For aircraft, 2 pilots. Asterisk. By the 3rd day, the aliens had adapted again. The contacts that appeared on radar moved with a combination of mechanical precision and organic unpredictability. They'd learned from their previous defeats, but so had the Americans. Gentlemen, ladies, General Reeves addressed the assembled pilots in a hangar at Edwards Air Force Base. Today we're going to demonstrate why the United States has maintained air superiority for the past 70 years. Behind her stood aircraft from every era of American air power. F-22 Raptors next to F-16 Fighting Falcons. F-35 Lightning E's. Beside a 10 Thunderbolts, even a pair of F-4 Phantoms that had been pulled from museum duty and hastily armed. The aliens think they understand us now. They've seen our most advanced fighters, our stealth technology, our precision weapons. What they haven't seen is the full spectrum of American air power. Mitchell smiled as she realized the strategy. The aliens had adapted to fight the most sophisticated weapons in the American arsenal. They weren't prepared for the crude effectiveness of older systems. Captain Mitchell, you'll be leading the main strike force. F-22s and F-35s will engage at high altitude, draw their attention. Once they're committed to that engagement, the real attack begins. The real attack turned out to be 2 squadrons of A-10 Thunderbolts coming in at treetop level. The aliens' advanced sensors, tuned to detect stealth fighters and precision weapons, completely missed aircraft designed to destroy Soviet tanks in the European countryside. Hogflight. This is Viper. Targets are committed high. You're clear to engage. Copy, Viper. Time to show these visitors some close air support. The A-10s opened fire with their Geo-8 Avenger cannons, 7-barreled rotary cannons that fired depleted uranium shells the size of milk bottles. The sound was like the world's largest zipper being opened by an angry god. The aliens had learned to defend against energy weapons and precision missiles. They had no defense against 2 tons of depleted uranium being fired at them by pilots who'd spent their careers turning armored vehicles into scrap metal. This is Hog Leader, Splash 4, ... Make that 6 tangos. These things don't like the 30-Mike. But the real surprise came from the museum pieces. The F-4 Phantoms, flown by retired pilots who'd volunteered for one more mission, carried weapons that were ancient by modern standards. Unguided rockets, iron bombs, technology that was already obsolete when their fathers were flying combat missions over Vietnam. The aliens' adaptive defense systems, sophisticated enough to counter the most advanced human technology, were completely unprepared for weapons that operated on principles from the 1960s. Control. This is Ghost Leader. Deploying iron bombs on target cluster. These things are so busy trying to figure out our guidance systems, they forgot to just get out of the way. The engagement lasted 8 hours. When it was over, the skies above Earth were empty of alien contacts. Final tally, 347 alien aircraft destroyed. American losses, 11 aircraft, 7 pilots. Asterisk. Captain Mitchell, how did you and your squadron defeat a technologically superior enemy force? The question came from a congressional hearing 3 weeks after the last alien contact disappeared from Earth's airspace. Mitchell sat at a witness table, still uncomfortable in her dress blues, facing a room full of politicians who wanted to understand how 12 aircraft had changed the course of human history. Sir, with respect, they might have had better technology, but they made one fatal mistake, which was they forgot they were fighting Americans. The phrase would become legend, but Mitchell knew it was incomplete. The real answer was more complex, and, in some ways, more humbling. The aliens fought like engineers. She continued, perfect formation, flying, optimal weapon deployment, mechanical precision in every maneuver. They approached warfare like a mathematical problem to be solved. She paused, looking out at the assembled representatives. Americans fight like Americans. We adapt, we improvise, we find solutions that don't exist in any manual. When our most advanced missiles didn't work, we switched to guns. When formation flying didn't work, we used tactics that would make Sanju weep. When high-tech failed, we went look, but surely their technology is just a tool, Congressman. The pilot decides how to use it, and American pilots are trained to think beyond the limits of their equipment. What she didn't say, what couldn't be declassified for another 50 years, was the real lesson of the 3-day campaign. The aliens had superior technology, superior weapons, superior sensors. What they lacked was the one thing that couldn't be engineered: the warrior spirit of pilots who understood what they were protecting. F-22 Raptors and F-35 Lightning IIs, B-2 Spirit bombers appearing from stealth-like shadows given deadly form, F-16 Fighting Falcons and F-15 Eagles proving that sometimes quantity has a quality all its own, A-10 Thunderbolts demonstrating that sometimes the old ways were the best ways. But it all started with 12 aircraft and a pilot who understood that some things are worth fighting for, no matter the odds. Captain Sarah Viper Mitchell received the Medal of Honor in a ceremony attended by pilots from every branch of the U.S. military. During her acceptance speech, she said something that became the unofficial motto of the campaign that followed. They came expecting to find a planet. They found America instead. The last alien contact disappeared from Earth's airspace 72 hours after the first official casualty reports remain classified, but intelligence estimates suggest that over 3,000 alien aircraft were destroyed during the 3-day campaign. American losses: 17 aircraft, 9 pilots. The mathematics of air superiority had been proven once again. Technology was important. Training was crucial. But what mattered most was the warrior spirit of pilots willing to fly into impossible odds because they understood what they were protecting. In the years that followed, aerospace engineers would study the wreckage of alien technology and revolutionize human understanding of physics. Propulsion systems that defied gravity, energy weapons that operated on principles beyond current science, materials that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. But the real lesson was simpler. American airspace belongs to America, and American pilots don't yield to anyone. The triangular craft never returned. Maybe they learned their lesson. Maybe they found easier targets elsewhere in the galaxy. Or maybe they finally understood what every human pilot learns the first time they strap on an F-22 Raptor and climb toward the edge of space. The sky belongs to those brave enough to claim it. And no one claims the sky quite like America. 6 months later, Captain Sarah Mitchell stood in the ready room at Nellis Air Force Base, briefing a new class of pilots. The best and brightest from across the Air Force, selected for the newly formed 1st Space Superiority Squadron. The mission hasn't changed, she told them, looking out at faces that reminded her of herself 15 years earlier. Young, eager, absolutely convinced of their own invincibility. We defend American airspace. The only difference is that our airspace now extends a bit higher than it used to. Through the windows of the ready room she could see the new aircraft on the flight line, F-22X Raptors with modified engines capable of brief orbital operations. Technology reverse-engineered from alien wreckage and improved with American innovation. Remember, she continued, technology wins battles. Training wins campaigns. But wars are won by people who understand what they're fighting for. The young pilots hung on every word. She'd become something of a legend since that morning 6 months ago when 12 aircraft had changed the course of human history. Questions. A young lieutenant in the front row raised his hand. Ma'am, what was it like fighting something that advanced? Mitchell thought about the question for a moment. How to explain the feeling of pulling 8 Gs while tracers streaked past your canopy. How to describe the moment when you realize that everything you've trained for your entire life comes down to the next 30 seconds. Lieutenant, it was terrifying. They had technology we couldn't understand, weapons we couldn't match, and advantages we couldn't overcome. The room was silent, but they made one mistake. They thought technology was enough. They forgot that on the other side of that technology, there's always a person, and that person gets to decide whether to fight or surrender. She looked around the room at the next generation of American pilots, men and women who would defend Earth's airspace for decades to come. American pilots don't surrender. We adapt, we overcome, and we win. She picked up her helmet from the podium. They were going to practice intercepts at 80,000 feet, considered a refresher course in the fundamentals of air superiority. The pilots filed out toward their aircraft, chattering excitedly about the day's mission. Mitchell followed them at a distance, listening to their conversations. They talked about thrust-to-weight ratios and engagement envelopes, radar cross-sections and beyond visual range combat, the technical aspects of aerial warfare that separated professionals from amateurs. But underneath the technical discussion, she heard something else. The quiet confidence of pilots who knew they were the best in the world at what they did. The unshakable belief that American airspace was theirs to defend. That morning 6 months ago, humanity had learned they weren't alone in the universe, that there were other intelligences out there with technology far beyond current human capabilities, but humanity had also proven something else, that superior technology meant nothing without the will to use it effectively, that the sky belonged to those brave enough to claim it and skilled enough to hold it. As she walked toward her F-22X, Mitchell smiled. Somewhere out there in the vast darkness between stars, there might be other civilizations with other technologies and other weapons. Let them come. American pilots would be waiting. 10 years after the 3-day war that changed everything, the world had settled into a new normal. The Aerospace Defense Force, established from the merger of the Air Force and Space Force, maintained constant vigilance over Earth's expanded definition of airspace. Patrol routes now extended to lunar orbit, early warning stations dotted the asteroid belt. Captain Sarah Mitchell, now Colonel Sarah Mitchell, commanded the 1st Interplanetary Defense Wing from Schriever Space Base in Colorado. The facility had grown from a modest satellite control center into a fortress that monitored everything from low Earth orbit to the edge of the solar system. "Colonel, we've got something interesting on the deep space arrays," her operations officer reported during the morning briefing. Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Rodriguez Calsane Raven had been one of the fresh-faced lieutenants in her space superiority class. Now he wore the silver oak leaves of a field-grade officer and the quiet confidence of a pilot who'd never lost a space engagement. "Define interesting, Raven." "Long-range sensors are picking up artificial structures in the Kuiper belt, not moving, just sitting there about the size of a small moon." Mitchell studied the holographic display showing the outer solar system. The structures appeared as geometric shapes that defied easy classification, not quite ships, not quite stations, but something that suggested both. "How long have they been there?" "That's the thing, ma'am. Based on their position and our orbital, the mechanics calculations, they've been there for at least 50 years, possibly longer. We just never had sensors good enough to detect them." The room fell silent. Everyone present understood the implications. The alien invasion 10 years ago hadn't been first contact, it had been reconnaissance. The real force had been watching humanity for decades. Assessment. Mitchell asked her intelligence staff, Maja Elena Vasquez, her former weapons systems officer who'd transitioned to intelligence analysis, pulled up a detailed breakdown. "Based on mass estimates and energy signatures, we're looking at structures that dwarf anything we've ever built. Each one could house a population the size of New York City. Defenses? Unknown. But given what we learned about their adaptive technology, we have to assume they've been studying our tactical responses for the past decade." Mitchell walked to the window overlooking the flight line. F-22X Raptors sat beside newer F-45 starfighters that existed in the blurred line between atmospheric fighters and spacecraft. Technology reverse-engineered from alien wreckage and improved with American innovation. "Recommendations: we have 3 options," Major Vasquez continued. "Diplomatic contact, continued observation, or preemptive strike while we still have tactical surprise. And if we choose diplomacy and they're hostile, then we fight the war on their terms, at a time of their choosing." Mitchell thought about the young pilots she'd trained over the past decade, men and women who'd never known a world where humanity was alone in the universe. They'd grown up with the knowledge that somewhere out there, other intelligences existed and that some of them might not be friendly. "Raven, what's the status of the deep strike capability?" "All 12 wings of the Aerospace Defense Force are at full strength. We've got F-45 starfighters capable of interplanetary operations, B-3 Valkyries with nuclear penetrator warheads, and the new X-78 Aurora reconnaissance craft for long-range intelligence gathering. And if those aren't enough," Rodriguez smiled with the quiet confidence that had made him one of America's best pilots, "then we improvise, ma'am, like we always do." Mitchell made her decision with the same instinctive certainty that had served her well in the skies above Nevada 10 years earlier. "Prepare the option for, ma'am, where you go out there and introduce ourselves. On our terms, with enough firepower to make it clear that Earth isn't looking for a fight, but we're prepared for one." She turned back to her staff. "I want a full squadron of F-45s configured for long-range patrol, nuclear-tipped penetrators, electronic warfare suites, and enough fuel for a round trip to the Kuiper belt. We're going to have a conversation with our neighbors, and if they're not interested in conversation, then we remind them what happened to their reconnaissance force 10 years ago." 3 weeks later, Colonel Sarah Mitchell found herself strapped into an F-45 starfighter, leading a 12-ship formation toward the edge of the solar system. The journey would take 6 days at maximum acceleration time, enough to think about the magnitude of what they were attempting. The alien structures grew larger on her sensors as they approached, not ships or stations, but something that seemed to combine elements of both. Crystalline formations that pulsed with internal energy, architecture that suggested intelligence far older and more sophisticated than anything humanity had encountered. "Homeplate, this is Viper. We have visual on the target structures. They bigger than we thought." "Copy, Viper. What's your tactical assessment?" Mitchell studied the alien constructs through her fighter's advanced sensors. Each structure was roughly the size of Manhattan, but with a complexity that suggested technology beyond current human understanding. "They're definitely artificial, definitely inhabited, and they've definitely been watching us for a long time." As if responding to her words, the alien structures began to change. Geometric patterns shifted across their surfaces. Energy readings spiked. And then, for the first time in 10 years, humanity received a transmission from beyond Earth. It came not as radio waves or digital signals, but as something that spoke directly to the consciousness of every pilot in the formation. Not words, but concepts. Not language, but pure meaning. We have been observing, we have been learning, we are impressed. The message carried with it images, memories from the alien perspective of the 3-day war a decade earlier, humanity's adaptation, improvisation, and refusal to surrender even against impossible odds. You fight with honor, you adapt with wisdom, you defend with courage. We would speak with your leaders. Mitchell keyed her knowing that her words would be heard not just by her squadron but by the alien intelligence that had been watching humanity grow up. This is Colonel Sarah Mitchell, United States Aerospace Defense Force. Speaking for Earth, we're listening. What followed was the most important conversation in human history. Not the first contact that humanity had always imagined peaceful, scientists sharing knowledge across the vast emptiness of space, but something more complex and ultimately more hopeful. The aliens had indeed been watching for decades. They were part of a confederation of species that had survived their own technological adolescence and now served as unofficial guardians for younger civilizations. The attack 10 years ago had been a test not of human technology, but of human character. Most species, when faced with overwhelming technological superiority, chose surrender or destruction. Humanity had chosen adaptation. Your people do not yield, the alien intelligence observed. This is rare among younger species. Most either submit immediately to superior force or destroy themselves in futile resistance. You found a third path. Mitchell felt the weight of representing not just America, but all of humanity. We learned a long time ago that freedom isn't free. Sometimes you have to fight for it, even when the odds are impossible. Yes, this is why we watch. This is why we test. The galaxy is vast, Colonel Mitchell, and not all intelligences within it share your values. Some see younger species as resources to be harvested. Others see them as threats to be eliminated. We seek those who might stand with us as equals. The implications were staggering. Humanity wasn't just making first contact, they were being invited to join an interstellar defense alliance. What would membership require? Nothing that your people do not already possess. The courage to defend freedom wherever it is threatened. The wisdom to know when force is necessary and when diplomacy suffices. The strength to stand against superior odds without losing your essential character. Mitchell looked out at her squadron of F-45 starfighters, knowing that each pilot had volunteered for a mission that might not bring them home, the same warrior spirit that had driven 12 F-22s against impossible odds 10 years ago. On behalf of Earth, we accept. The alien structures began to change again, their crystalline surfaces rearranging into configurations that somehow suggested celebration. Energy patterns danced across their hulls like aurora given form. There will be challenges ahead, Colonel Mitchell, other species to meet, other threats to face. Some conflicts will test your technology, others will test your resolve. All will test whether humanity truly belongs among the stars. We'll be ready. We believe you will. Your people have already proven that superior technology means nothing without the will to use it effectively. You have shown that the sky belongs to those brave enough to claim it. Now you must learn that the same truth applies to space itself. That journey back to Earth took 6 days, but it felt like 6 minutes. Mitchell's mind raced with the implications of what they'd discovered. Humanity was no longer alone. More importantly, humanity had earned its place among the stars, not through technological supremacy, but through the warrior spirit that had defined American military culture for centuries. As her F-45 descended through Earth's atmosphere to Schriever Space Base, Mitchell could see the lights of cities sprawling across the continental United States, millions of people going about their daily lives, unaware that their species had just taken its first steps toward becoming a galactic power. Her comm crackled with the familiar voice of air traffic control. Starfighter flight, this is Peterson. Approach, you are cleared for landing. How was the neighborhood, Viper? Mitchell smiled as she lined up her final approach. Some things never changed. American pilots, American controllers, American humor in the face of the impossible. Peterson approach. This is Viper. Neighborhood's a bit crowded, but friendly. Recommend we keep the welcome mat out. Copy that, Viper. Welcome home. As her starfighter touched down on the runway, Mitchell realized that home now meant something different than it had a week ago. Earth wasn't just humanity's birth world anymore, it was humanity's first fortress in a galaxy, full of challenges and opportunities. The young pilots she'd trained over the past decade would now face threats beyond anything their predecessors had imagined. But they'd face them the same way American pilots had always faced impossible odds, with superior training, adaptive tactics, and the unshakable belief that some things were worth fighting for no matter the cost. The sky had always belonged to those brave enough to claim it. Now humanity would learn whether the same was true of space itself. Colonel Sarah Viper Mitchell climbed out of her F-45 starfighter and looked up at the star-filled sky above Colorado. Somewhere out there, alien intelligences were preparing to welcome humanity into a larger community. Other threats were undoubtedly planning to test human resolve. Let them come. American pilots would be waiting, and now they'd have friends. The mathematics of air superiority had expanded to include the entire galaxy. Technology was important. Training was crucial. But what mattered most was still the warrior spirit of pilots willing to fly into impossible odds because they understood what they were protecting. Some things never changed, and sometimes that was exactly what the universe needed.
Welcome, traveler. We're glad you're here. Every story you hear is made with care and passion. If you enjoy it, please like, subscribe, and check out the other adventures waiting for you on our channel. Your support means the world. Thank you. We hope you enjoy the story.
Humanity Galactic Frontiers, all rights reserved. This video and its contents are protected under international copyright law. Any unauthorized copying, distribution, or re-uploading is strictly prohibited without written permission. If you enjoyed this journey, please like the video and subscribe for more stories from the edge of the galaxy. Thanks for watching, and stay curious out there among the stars.